Hi everyone, welcome to this video. Before I show you something, let me play a video clip so that you can listen to Ding Liren.
It's both advantage and also disadvantage. I remember once Topalov, the Topalov Anand match, where Topalov had white pieces in the last game, but he destroyed it. So yeah, I have a rest day to see what to play for the last or maybe not the last game. Yeah.
That was Ding talking about how having the white pieces in the last game of the World Championship match can be both a boon and a bane. Because the game which he mentioned is what we are going to look at. That is between Topalov and Vishy Anand. It was played in the 12th game because at that point the match was not 14 game long but 12 games long and the score was 5.5 each. And Vishy had the black pieces, Topalov was white, and it was a very similar kind of a situation, right? Topalov would have a small edge, just like how Ding would have in his match against Yan, with both players on 6.5 after 13 games. So Topalov was always opening his game with d4 in that match, and Vishy had gone for two openings back then. One was the Grunfeld that he was playing here, and the other one which he was playing was the Slough defense, and it was a very solid line that he was going for. With they called it the Elista endgame after bishop f5, knight e5. I think something like f3, e6, f3, c5, e4, and so on. And it was leading to slightly inferior endgames, but Vishy was holding. So there was a rest day, just like how we have right now before the final game. And so Vishy and his team sat down and they were like, what are we going to do today? And Anand actually came up with the idea. And by the way, all these stories I'm going to read out from this book, the Anand Files, which is amazing. And also Vishy's own autobiography, Mind Master. I have them both here. We are going to get to know all the mindset that goes into this final game. So Vishy and his team were like, look, I have already played the Grunfeld and the Slav, so Topalov and his team are going to just completely go into it and will find new ideas there. So let me go for Queen's Gambit decline. This was Anand's choice himself, and so after d4, d5, c4, he went for e6, and very interestingly, Vishy was helped by a lot of people for this game, most notably by, of course, his team of seconds, which included Surya Ganguly, Rustam Kazimjanov, Wojtaszek, uh, and Peter Heine Nielsen, of course, but also by Kasparov and Kramnik. So we'll get to know more about that when we read these books. But knight f3 was played by Topalov and Vishy played knight f6, and I think this was one very good thing for Vishy, that when you play the Queen's Gambit decline, you have like hundreds of years of experience of this opening being played at the highest level. So the chances of you being surprised by a bombshell, some new opening idea, is going to be very less. Bishop e7, bishop to g5, Vishy played h6, bishop h4, castles, e3, and now he went for the most solid system against this, which is the Lasker variation, and then takes. And we reach this position. He played rook c1, and now came the move c6. Bishop e2 by Topalov, and there is also the move bishop d3, which is actually more popular here, but it doesn't matter much because in the end you're going to take on c4 and the bishop will anyway take. So bishop e2, knight c3, rook c3, dc, bishop c4. And here after knight d7 castles, one of the main moves, of course, is to play e5. And with this, black is trying to equalize. He's trying to open up his bishop. I remember there was this very famous game of Karpov, which I had seen in this line before. Maybe it was against... was it here or not? I don't know. Maybe it was against Yusupov. And Karpov had won with the white pieces. But Vishy went for another approach, which is b6, and he wants to put his bishop on b7 and activate this way via c5. Bishop d3, bishop and pawn to c5. And here, well, I guess bishop b7 is also playable, but then maybe you have to watch out for bishop e4 move. And perhaps Vishy did not like this line so much, so he went for c5, bishop e4, hitting the rook. The rook came to b8, and the idea is, of course, to get out of the thing, but also in some cases when he takes here, you want to take back with the pawn, opening up your rook. Queen c2, and now came this move knight f6, and this is a big innovation at that point. It was rarely played. The main move, I believe, at that point was, I mean, many people had played here bishop b7. There was a5 also, which was being played. So knight f6 was an idea of a Polish player, Grabarczyk. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but this was actually Wojtaszek's friend, I believe, from Poland, and they looked at his games. He had sent them, and this was a new idea. White took here, and Vishy took on e4, queen takes, and pawn takes. And so for weakness of the c5 pawn, you have free play with the rook, and also your bishop can be activated on this long diagonal. Okay, queen went back to c2. b3 was also playable here, and Vishy would have gone bishop b7, queen f4, maybe takes, and rook d8. And I think this position is not so tough to hold. So main idea of Anand was that let's make a draw, and then we'll go into the tie breaks. And Vishy was considered to be one of the best, I mean, at that point, perhaps the best rapid player in the world. So he was very confident. Bishop b7, knight d2. Okay, if rook takes c5, then it's risky because after take, rook takes b2. And then queen takes c5 is coming up. So knight d2 was played to sort of park your knight on the c4 square. Rook d8, f3. And this is where Topalov started to get very ambitious in the game. Now Vishy went bishop a6, rook f2, he goes rook d7, doubles up the rook, and now g3 was played by Veselin Topalov, and maybe is already start of going in the wrong direction. But I think he was feeling a little bit claustrophobic here. He wanted to play maybe king g2, put his pawn up to e4, and so on. Now rook d8, king g2, bishop went here, and I think what Vishy does very smartly now is he comes back, because he's like, okay, draw is fine. And Topalov goes all out, like, I want to win. He goes rook a3, bishop b7, and then he goes knight b3. Attacking the c5 pawn, Vishy defends it, knight a5, and of course we're going to keep the bishop, bishop a8. Knight goes to c4, and now Anand plays e5. And his idea is that if given an opportunity, he would like to push the pawn to e4. So Topalov stops it with e4, and now Vishy does something very nice. Try to pause this video and think, because this is a very key moment. What should black play here? Yes, it's important to open up this bishop, and that's the reason why Anand plays the move f5. Very strong move, very strong move. And Topalov had to go knight d2 and keep it shut, like for this bishop. If this happens, just take back with the knight, hope that he'll take with the bishop, and then draw, go back home, prepare for the tie break. But he takes here, and this was terrible. Because after e4, which was a classy move by Vishy, even Anand was a bit worried at this point. He was like, either I'm completely winning, has Topalov missed something, or I'm missing completely something. But I think when you have this bishop on a8, it gives you a lot of confidence. It's such a strong bishop. Takes, queen takes e4. I mean, there were other ways to play here, but already the position is getting very dangerous. King h3. And here Topalov felt that his king was okay. But of course it's not. It's better for black clearly, but Anand actually found a very nice sequence of moves now. Two moves which really brought home the point. So firstly, he went for the move rook d4. Now he's attacking the knight and also threatening queen g4 mate. So there's only one move actually here, which is knight e3. And now try to find what should black play here. It's a very important move here. Yep, queen e8. Fantastic move. The idea is queen h5 check, and then the bishop is controlling this. And this backward move was missed by Topalov, which kind of ended the game. So after g4, he pushed the pawn with h5, king h4, g5. Well, there were many ways to play for a win. Even h takes g4 was possible. Knight takes g4. White is now, sort of back in the game. So better to not do that. And Vishy found g5 here, which is the best move. Fg, queen takes g6. Well, if in case you took here, there was rook g7 check at g4, and black is better. So Fg, queen takes g6, queen f1, take here, king h3, and now rook e7. Good move. Rook f8 check, he went king g7. Later on, Anand said he was a bit afraid of king h7, rook h8. But actually, it doesn't really work because here there is queen c8, bg2, knight g2, queen c8 is also a nice way to finish off the game. Or if you give this check, then there is, rook g7 and black wins. So king g7, knight f5. Once again, I hope here rook e7 check, king g7, knight f5, and now king h7. Very cool move. Rook g3, in came takes, queen g4, and a check. And now if you don't take, it's mate on h1, queen h3. So took, and now Vishy had a queen for rook and knight. But the main thing is that these pieces are very loose, and the queen kind of wins it. And Anand plays very well here. Rook f6, he goes king g8, and this move queen e4, king h2, and king h7. With a zugzwang here, there's no real good move left. Wherever you go, you are in trouble. So rook d6, queen e5, and loses the b2 pawn. And with this, Topalov resigned the game and Vishy became the world champion. So this is actually something very interesting that happened in this match, and something which Ding has to be careful of with team Nepo, because they are also going to be very careful in their prep. So let me first read it from Anand's book. He says, the immediate question that arose was, what should we do for game 12? Repeat the choices that had made us suffer or try something new? The team had to also mentally brace itself for the possibility of the match spilling into tie breaks. We didn't want to return to game 10 opening, the Grunfeld, with the supercomputer invading our thoughts. There was this sort of a notion that Team Topalov had a supercomputer, and so they didn't want to go for any sharp lines because it could come up with a brilliant novelty. In the earlier instance, Topalov wasn't expecting it, but now that we had used it once, we were sure he'd go over it and the computer would find a line that would counter it. If we wanted to make an impact, the surprise value had to be a lot greater. My seconds craved for breaks from their cloistered existence on the top floor of the suite at Hilton, so we occasionally went out for walks in the park, which would also double up as team meetings. We did this before game 12, where I suggested playing the Queen's Gambit declined. It was a solid opening, alright, but I wasn't familiar with it and my experience in it was minimal. Just imagine, you have been working on a black repertoire against 1d4 for months, and then for the most important game, you suddenly switch to something where you have very little preparation. That requires some guts. For the team, this was going to be a mad scramble. Much like in Bonn, I refrained from burdening them with the onus of having to take a call on the feasibility of the opening. Since we were to invest whatever little we had working on it, I decided to risk it. See, these are the decisions, I think when you are playing a world championship match and you are the player, you are like the CEO of the company. While you have a great team working with you, the main decisions have to be made by you. Like if Vishy said, okay, go and check if this will work or not, and then they would all work and then they would come back with, oh, this is not working and all, then it loses time. But Vishy is like, you have to make this work. I'm going to play it irrespective of whether, and this is a risky choice. It also shows great sort of leadership skills, also shows the great trust that Vishy had in his decision making. Kramnik, now this is very interesting. Kramnik worked alongside the team throughout the entire night, and an English friend, Luke McShane, found a resource in the line early in the morning. The team decided it was good enough to execute. At 9 a.m., when I walked into the workroom, they told me that at 5 a.m., I didn't have an opening, but now I did. So I should just sit down and not ask any questions and listen to the brief. My preparation went well, so did my opening, and my counterplay was effective. And at some point, a move repetition came up. He declined. It seemed strange to me because I didn't see how declining gave him any advantage. I tried not to slip into the mode of waiting around for him to do something, so I started playing actively in the center with the march of my pawns. This got to his goat. This got his goat for absolutely no reason that I could think of. He made two strange moves. Soon I struck a pawn break. This move f5 that we just saw, the pawn break here with the move f5. I knew that if he didn't react to it, nothing much would happen, like with knight d2. But if he took the pawn, then I could tempt him with another one as well, which happened. To be fair to him, this rested on just one mistake in his assessment, which was that I think Topalov, as he mentioned, he forgot about this move queen e8. Had it been correct, his decision would have looked smart. He ended up playing fast, blundered, and opened every entry point to his king. It's what the heat of the battle can do to your mind. Topalov's bigger error, which he admitted to later, was that since he felt I was better than him at rapid chess, he had decided that his own best odds lay in the match not spilling into tiebreaks. This was a mistake. No matter, now there's a very important thing which Anand says, no matter what your difference, what your odds are, you should never gamble too much. There's a difference between gambling and preparing to take a risk. What Topalov did on the board was the spur of the moment act, which almost brought me to a winning position in 3 moves. Back in the hotel, my team, which had been working overnight, was ready to drop dead, watched me play the boring opening, and was mildly relieved that they could now drift into peaceful sleep with clear conscience. And then they got to know that Vishy won, and then the entire thing sort of built up. It was amazing. And just a couple of things from this book, Anand Files. I'm going to put the link of both these books in the description so you can get them. I would heartily recommend both the books to you. When the game started, Kazim Janov watched the opening while talking to Kramnik, who hoped the game would be draw without too many adventures. Rustam then went to his room for a nap, and then he woke up. He saw the white king was on h4 and he couldn't believe his eyes. He thought, there goes a draw without adventures. But upon looking more closely, he was shocked at the way Topalov had opened up the long diagonal for Anand's bishop. And that's how it was. So it says the line played by Anand was based on an idea by Polish grandmaster Miroslav Grabarczyk. This move, knight f6, as we just saw here, queen c2, knight f6. Radek, which is Wojtaszek, knew Grabarczyk as a solid player, and when he saw the idea in the database, he shared Grabarczyk's game in this line with the team. On the rest day, the team worked on the idea using only games played with the concept and developing their own theory. Nielsen checked proposed Queen's Gambit declined idea with Magnus Carlsen via Skype. So Magnus was also involved. He was what, 18 back then? Sorry, 20. Who looked at it briefly and said it looked like crap and continued playing video games. In games 10 and 11, the team felt that the match was slipping away But Topalov, completely unpredictable and playing in front of his home crowd, wanted to finish the match in style. So, yeah, that's how it turned out. I mean, just the fact that Topalov didn't want to play the rapid tie breaks made him take all these decisions. So, and then Anand's team met him and they celebrated. Um, they went for a dinner in a top Indian restaurant and they reminisced many things. And that was how it ended. And this is why this was such an important lesson there, that having the white piece is not the only thing. You have to be careful. And I think Ding will have to maintain that balance of trying to push and also be ready to pull the brakes. I also remember that in 2018, with Fabiano Caruana, Carlsen was completely better in the 12th game, almost close to winning perhaps, and he agreed to a draw because he didn't want to press so much, and he said, let me focus on the tie breaks, which he won cleanly. So that was also a lot of pressure. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of pressure that will mount up in this final game. We will be live on ChessBase India. I will catch you guys at that point. Take care. See you. Bye bye.